Commissioner Sean Tindell. He is the commissioner, of course, of the Department of Public Safety, and also Tony Carleton, the director of Mississippi Law Enforcement Training Academy, our guest now here in the Element Well Studios at Mississippi Blood Services. So good to see you gentlemen, and a nice day to be out and about in the capital city and around the metro area. Last time we were here, it was raining like crazy, but we're getting people come in to donate blood today, and that's why we're doing this. And they're hearing our voice and coming in and saying, we heard you on the radio, we came in to give blood, and that's what we need. So appreciate you guys coming in. Commissioner, tell us about Tony's new appointment here.
Well, we were very excited about it. Tony had came to us during the search process for a new director. Thomas Tuggle had been the director at Melota for years and had done an excellent job, but upon his retirement, we knew there was some big shoes to fill, so we started the search process, and I felt like it was important as we looked for a new director of Melota that we kind of return the focus to somebody that has some experience at a sheriff's office or a police department, and since that is a majority of the folks that do come through Melota are local law enforcement agencies, wanted somebody with a background and contacts in that arena, and Tony was a good choice, a great choice. We looked at some other candidates that were also great choices, but Tony brought a level of enthusiasm at a point in his career where we felt like he brought all the things we needed, and so excited to have him coming down from North Mississippi, where he came from up around Oxford, and also spent some time on the coast. He was at Harrison County for a little while, so that's part of it. He has the connection statewide, and I got to tell you, a lot of the law enforcement officers I know from across the state have reached out to me and very pleased with our announcement that Tony was going to be heading up Melota.
Good.
For the near future.
So the Academy, Commissioner, are you training just officers to be state troopers in the Highway Patrol, or are we training other law enforcement organizations as well?
That's two different things. So our Trooper Academy is held at Melota, but that is a totally different academy and operated separate. Melota does the basic training for law enforcement. It also does some investigator programs and different specialized programs, courses that they put on. But again, the emphasis at Melota is for local law enforcement agencies, and we do some work with other state agencies. You'll see Wildlife and Fisheries send officers through there. You'll see Corrections send officers through there. But the primary focus is local law enforcement, and there's several academies from across the state, in addition to Melota that do the same thing, and we really want to get Melota back to being a leader in training law enforcement across the state. In fact, we had a meeting yesterday, very exciting. We're putting together plans for a new campus out there, so we'll have some state-of-the-art technology in the future, larger dormitories and better facilities, so that we'll be the premier law enforcement agency training academy in the state.
Tony, congratulations. What do you think about this? What are your plans?
Thank you. Well, I'm certainly excited about it, and I appreciate so much the Governor Tate Reeves and Commissioner Sean Tindell for allowing me the opportunity to bring some experience there and to grow. So I'm excited about that, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. What's your background exactly?
Well, I'm originally from Tupelo, born and raised there, and started my law enforcement career actually on the campus at Mississippi State. And after that, I went back home for a while and really got to learn a lot about the academy. I started teaching out there in '97, so my background started with law enforcement and defensive tactics. From there is when I moved to the coast and was able to work at their academy, and just found myself in different roles growing in law enforcement. I actually felt I could provide more, or wanted an opportunity to do more than just on the street. And so the training aspect really drove me to do those things.
Yeah, awesome. Congratulations. By the way, Neil from Pontotoc, a regular listener, says, congratulations to Tony. He's a great man.
Thank you.
So that's awesome when you hear that out from the community. Sounds like you made a great selection there, Commissioner. And so we look for great progress. You got the legislature in session. Been there a week now, effective today. What's on your radar that you want them to address from a DPS perspective?
Well, we've got a pretty light ask when it comes to legislation this year. Our biggest focus is budget. Obviously, inflation has hit the state of Mississippi and government employees, state employees, like it has everybody. So, trying to find ways to provide better salaries for our public safety officials, I think is very important. We're also pushing for some language cleanup in your general bills, but nothing too big. Probably the biggest piece of legislation we have is the Guardian Act, and recently the Department of Education had a clarification so that their policies conform with state law, that teachers with enhanced carry permits could, with the school district's approval, bring a firearm to school. We want to provide what we're calling the Guardian program, which is training for those school districts and teachers that want to partake in that process. And as part of that, we want those teachers to get a stipend for, doing it, going through the program, which will be about a 3-week training program where they'll learn enhanced firearm techniques, self-defense techniques, and communication techniques. And so we feel like it's a very well-vetted program. We work with the Department of Education on it. We've worked with law enforcement, different agencies on it, and coming up with a policy, and we think it's going in the right direction. And it's a voluntary program. The teachers don't have to do it, and the school districts don't have to do it. But if they're going to do it, we want to make sure they have the proper training.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. How are we doing with respect to recruiting? I know that's always an issue and a challenge for you guys that you're constantly working on.
Well, we've got a trooper school starting at the end of January, and we've really had some excellent candidates apply, and I'm really excited about this class. We're hoping to have at least 70 to 80 start, graduate at least 50 and maybe 60, and really pleased with that. They've got a new class out at Melota, and I think Tony could talk a little bit about the class size there. But recruiting is an issue. It's harder and harder to find good law enforcement officers, and I think it's imperative that across the state that local communities and the state, for that matter, provide a livable wage for law enforcement. If we're going to get the quality, we need to provide the quality salaries to get them in that arena.
Sure. Right. Tony, tell us about the Academy. Commissioner, you mentioned when you introduced Tony that you've got some investments coming in new technology, new techniques. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, certainly a lot of the things that are coming up are about virtual reality, and so we can put officers in certain situations to help that training when they get back home and able to deal with that. So they've come a long way with that technology and CGI, even with the changing the voices and things like that. So it really puts an aspect for them, because some of the smaller agencies in the state may not ever see that. It may be a rare occurrence, but they're able to put them in different settings. So when the officer is visually watching that, it's set up to where you can actually set up a certain area that you want them to, and they can actually walk and move around in that area in a safe environment. So it's really come a long way of what that advanced training is doing there. So it's just a part of getting that on board, and how do we get that involved and set it in the curriculum so it's provided all over the state. Any other assets or resources you need at the Academy at this point that you'd like to see? Well, the commissioner and they're working on that, as he said earlier, about the facilities, and that'll come. We're not going to stop training, and we're going to provide some high quality guys. The virtual reality is one of them, but also as far as the advanced classes, we have to do a lot better on a de-escalation aspect of that. We want officers to be able to be in a certain situations and remain calm, but be aware, keep their tactics up. So we're going to continue with that and follow through. I know, I'm sure you have a lot of tried and true legacy standards in place, of course, for various responses to different situations, but it seems like there's always something new happening. And when you see that happening somewhere in the country or maybe even in the world, does that get incorporated into your training? Do you upgrade your training to now address that? Well, the Department of Standards and Training certainly, when the board meets, they look at those new technologies or what the academy directors bring to them and says, hey, we've got some issues here that we're not training on. How do we incorporate that? How do we extend the course to involve that? And so then it gets to vetting the new instructors in that and see how we can put those programs together. I'm sure the goal is to expose the officers to every possible situation to the extent possible that you can, so that they don't encounter something in practice in their actual work that they haven't seen before and they know what to do. That's right. That's the goal.
Commissioner and Tony, appreciate it. By the way, more texts rolling in. Paul in Fulton says Tony Carleton is a great choice. I've known him since he was a young man. I also worked at the Tupelo PDs from Walnut, Mississippi. I was on the city council in Tupelo when we hired Tony as our police chief. He will be a great new position. Congratulations, Fred Pitts, who used to work with my father, by the way.
Thank you, Mr.
Appreciate
Pitts,
you guys coming on. Thanks. Good to see you, Commissioner Tony.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Good luck to you, and we'll be right back here at Mississippi Blood Services middays Super Talk.